Okay, Ada, first of all, thank you. I can see that you tried lots of versions, and it's great to see so many options. So I can see two separate approaches. First of all, you have a more usually work with your name to create a kind of an emblem, a sign out of your letters, especially your first name. But I also see like this island idea as a probably as a second alternative, and there's this one as well as a more figurative approach. It seems like you, to me at least, because you have created more ideas for the letter ones and more geometrical ones, it seems like this is like a kind of an additional thing. I'm not sure whether it fits with your identity. In case it fits, let me first start with that one, what you need to do to solve this one. Right now, the island is kind of like too visually not together, so it's kind of taking up too much space and negative space. So this palm tree is going too far away. So what you need to do is you need to somehow get it closer to the rest. So a smaller, not that long of a palm tree, maybe a second one to kind of fill up that space. Or you shouldn't have that long of an island itself, so you then should have a much longer kind of a visual thing, and underneath you would first write Ada, but then Hatipoğlu won't be fitting, so that will be a problem. And don't also forget that if you only tell something like Hatipoğlu, it starts to sound like, I don't know, like a brand, not really a person, so you need definitely to write your name. So I think that this is further away from getting solved. And about this one, I like the way it starts, and this first sleeve kind of fits like and balances Ada. And Hatipoğlu, I like the way you kind of switch sides, but these two leaves are kind of crowding the second part a bit too much. They either have to kind of separate from that line, so a bit stay further away, be smaller, be different, but there's too much crowd and too much of repetition from here to here. I don't think you should strike down your name because it gives a negative feel. It's as if you're saying, this hasn't worked, I'm striking it out. It's never a good idea to write vertically like that. It's really hard to read. So I would forego this last page. And like I said, this is further away from being solved, but if you really like the island idea, then maybe try out different shapes and types of islands. Now, about these ones, they kind of give me a sense of an animal. Like its head and its legs, and this is also like dividing the name too much, I think, into two. So not this page, but the first two pages are the most promising ones, I think, and the one that I personally kind of like the most is this one. But again, this is your identity, so it's your choice. I'll just explain why, if I were you, I would pick this one. So among these, when you, for example, put these red verticals, they kind of pop up too much, and we try to understand whether you're trying to tell us something with these two and then one maybe. So unnecessary, maybe focus on certain parts of the name. The Ada itself, I mean, in terms of a name, it actually works really nice as an emblem. The shape, the way it repeats, is very interesting. I don't think those divisions with the red and everything, it's really not necessary. You could, of course, write Hatipoğlu like that, but again, so when you kind of do this, it starts to, I mean, for example, when I look at this one, I think of a men's clothing line. When I look at this one, it gives me the sense of a woman's hair designers, or somehow, I don't know why, because the reason why I say that is because I think I have seen specific identities for such things that kind of look like that. By the way, I can see that you try to play with contrast between the lines, but I wonder if this thin line is maybe too thin, so you have to increase all of them. Of course, when this one gets thicker, this one needs to get even thicker, and you have to solve how the thin line connects with the thicker line, and whether you want it to be rounded, whether you want it to be flat, or could you play with being flat or cornered versus being rounded. So a lot of things to play with. Or if you were to focus on this, I would also suggest that you look at how much of a big space you have here versus a tiny space here. It makes it look very dense and together here, while the second A is kind of left out. So you need to bring this one closer while maybe opening up that part a little bit. So another question is also, because here with your handwriting is actually looking much better, if this T could be a bit less wide, a bit less with such empty space in it, so that this looks more together. There's no need to write your surname like that. It's just too small and it won't be read. Anyway, if you do that kind of an emblem, you should definitely underneath write ada-betul-bora-burak-burcay once again. But you could, of course, maybe also do something like that. If you manage it well, if you can still read the ada, so maybe only with the betul-bora, it would also work. Or you can maybe have still the lines, but so here's an extreme where you take the line all the way through. You can also work with the idea of having a bit of a line, only here and only here. Not the full line, but a tiny bit, whether it's gonna come out of here or here. You can check it out. It would also make it look less like 101. But the reason why I read 101 is because this D is so like an O. So I think this can be interesting, but I think these are actually much more interesting. Among all of them, I think these last ones are the most advanced ones and the ones that are looking the most consistent and interesting. The way your name actually fits underneath is also really good. So the main thing that you need to play as alternatives for these is, I think you can play with how thick these lines are going to be. So produce alternatives, whether it's gonna start thin, become thicker, or whether they're all gonna be the same thickness all the way through. You see, I also see a kind of a rounded thing here. It starts to look like a baton. I don't think you need to have like this is in that direction, this is in that direction. Do you play the batteries or something? Is that why you did something like that? But I think they should be at the same, so if they're gonna get thinner, they should get thinner on the same angle or direction. So the red ones kind of go up, the black ones go down. It would, I think, work better like that, like you actually did it here. But in here, this is thicker, this is thinner. There's there reason for it? I'm just guessing that this is just because it's a sketch. The main thing you have to play after looking at how thick, how thin you want this to be and looking at the alternatives is to actually fix this logotype. I like that you're playing with the color, so you don't need to add additional space here, but right now look how small the O, the G, L are. All of these letters should be the same size. So this is either you fix them in Photoshop or you image trace them in Illustrator and fix them afterwards. And so this is your handwriting as far as I can see. What you should do is once you have an A, you should be using the same A everywhere, I think. And make sure that they all fit within the same lines with the same thicknesses so that it actually starts to look like a typeface that you created yourself. So I think my choice would be this, but like I said, it's a personal thing, whether you want to have a more figurative thing or whether this is where your heart lies, it's up to you. Good luck. Now I'm moving on to Betul. Just a moment. So Betul. I did check this out a moment ago, so here's what. I think when you have a more italic text, it fits with the idea of a water drop much better, and here it's too rigid, I think, and the drop doesn't look, like dropping, like a water drop. But I really find it really weird when you reverse this direction of that drop. It really looks like something else. I think the shape of the U is actually a very appropriate for a drop to fit in or to look like it's gonna drop in. So I think you don't need to show it to me like that. It would be much, much successful. So when you're dealing with such a thing, maybe instead of trying to do your own handwriting, you could also check out, there are so many options for italic typefaces that do have a handwritten, what we call a cursive look. So I think you can find them much better because it will look so much more professional and good looking. Your T especially is really disturbing the whole idea. So check out some typefaces too if you want to go with this idea. But if I were you, really this is personal choice. If you like the droplet, so go with it. But it seems to me like we have some very interesting ideas. In this page, I think I want to only focus on these last two because they're the ones that look much more together. Other ones are a bit confusing and they either look like bugs or I can also read D. But what I would do with these two is I would cut up this additional ascender of the B. So I would get them to the same height. here as well. So either you make this one longer or you make this one shorter, and I think shorter would actually work much better. And maybe play with the thicknesses even more. So a much more thicker one versus a thinner one. Try also what happens if you erase this full part, or if you just have a tiny bit of this coming in and then the rest is raised, because that confuses stuff, and this big thing is enough for me to read the O, and I don't actually have to read the O or the fully, because you're going to write your name underneath or next to it anyway. So this or this could be interesting. Now when I come to how you combine the droplet with the B, I think either the first one or this one are more appropriate and looks more like closer to be solved. Again here, maybe you start very thin, you slowly get thicker, and you end up doing something much thicker. So play with the proportions. How long should, again, this, what this we call the ascender of the B should be? Could it be shorter? Or doesn't it look like a raindrop when it's shorter? Maybe it's long, but maybe this doesn't have to come all the way here. Maybe it just comes and stops here. Maybe you actually create a kind of a diagonal shape here for it to stop. Maybe this B isn't that straight. Maybe it's a bit italic, so that the droplet also looks more dynamic. Play with them. So I would actually really like to see this digitized and with the different colors, different thicknesses, and like I said, with different angles, how it would look. Or more than this, I think prefer this one, because this one starts to look like, a sailing ship or something. I think this one is much better. But again, with the proportions, with the angles, the thicknesses, I wonder what would happen. But I think this has more potential. When I come to this page, the final, of course, this is all your final, it's looking very interesting. When you digitize it, of course, the circles would fit much better together. I really like how these bits are similar to this bit. Now, again, this is going too much up. What if I cut it up here? So it actually, maybe it could even start with like them. So it could start like that and turn instead of going the other way. So I would also play with this one. It could do something, and I would play with how thick. So I think this is overall thin. I mean, all of these sketches are a bit too thin, too linear. So get your lines a bit thicker. I don't think this final page is necessary. I mean, the ideas, I don't think you need to play with them. So don't keep working on all of them, of course. I'm saying either this, or I think either this, or maybe one of these two. Pick one, the one that you think identity-wise is closer to you, who you are, and keep digitizing and working on the one that you have picked. Good luck. The next one is Bora. Just a moment. So, Bora. When I checked your work a moment ago, the ones that I wanna I'm gonna go quickly. Ones that I really think you should focus is either this wind idea that fits with the meaning of your name, because visually, I mean, the reason why I'm not focusing on these ones or these ones is because I think, first of all, these are very complicated visually. You are repeating too much, and they don't really look like logotypes or logos. They're just too many levels to them, and unnecessary decorations, I should say. You're striking out your name, which becomes Dora instead of Bora. Weird shapes that connect, a lot of pills I see here, I don't know why, and it's really hard to read. So they look like you are trying to play out probably the first ideas you tried. I don't know why you would use a triangle, but how you connect your name with the triangle is not really working. It's just too complicated. You could fit actually your name here. Bora Özden would fit. But when you put such a triangle, it gives us a kind of a road sign feel, something that says, attention, maybe this is something you want to create. Could be, but okay, so you have to make sure that this is what you want to have. Now, I really like the way these circles repeat each other and you create a really nice wind effect. What should be looked at now about this one is how this emblem is going to interact with your name, the logotype. So is this the logotype you're going to use? Should it have a bit more space maybe between the letters? Right now it's so condensed that it's getting hard to read. How thick should it be? I mean, because if you're going to use them together, maybe they should have the same thickness, or maybe one of them should be much thicker, the other one smaller to play with the contrast. Is this thing going to be placed here so that it's kind of the wind starts from the end? Or maybe you have bora on top, özan at the bottom, and this doesn't, you don't do it straight like that, but you follow the angle of the A, so it's kind of starts like this, which might be more interesting. You will have the emblem here, and özden will have space to get longer underneath. So maybe it doesn't have to be, by the way, you don't have to have it that long. You can have it smaller. Maybe this curve could be ended before. So play with how this will function alongside the logotype, I think. If you're going to use two colors within the wind itself, this is really not the way to do it. I mean, this works, the way they touch each other works, only when it's fully same color. But even here, so there's this one that's larger and three of them that's the same size, although you have distorted this one, it doesn't really indicate a circle, you have to fix it. So maybe this one needs to turn here, that this one is here. So you see, I think you can play with this idea. Maybe this one is actually much better, by the way. But if you're only going to have these three, maybe you can make them a bit thicker, the lines. I think they would work much better. Or have the bigger one thicker, second one a bit thinner, and then the tiniest one would be this. So you see, you have a lot of options, but if you have two colors, the way you should separate the colors, they don't look good when they cross over each other. So this is a good idea, not this one, but one of these. These are 260s, and there is not really an idea on these two first rows. It's just you're trying to play with your name, but it doesn't give me any idea, and the separation of your name is not really working. Two big spaces between the letters, between the lines, and not really doing anything. But here is something interesting again. So whether you wanna, this is also playful, but this is more playful, more kind of a childlike or caricature design like, if you're into those kind of things, so it might work. Not these, but these two. I mean, emblem-wise, they're working much, much better. There's two unnecessary things happening here, too many things happening. But in here, with a small slit, I both see the B, but I also could see the Ö, but more than the Ö, I see the small bug with kind of the wings and everything. This division is actually much better than this one. What I don't like here is this corner. So I think you can curve this out, and what you could do, take as a template a B that's not equal in terms of the upper and the bottom part. There are B's that have smaller upper, portions. Maybe one of them could work better. Check out, or you can do it on your own. And also this small distance here is also a bit unnecessary. So I think the corner is a much better choice. But of course, depending on how you change that part, those decisions could also work. And this would be also very interesting with different colors between the parts, I don't know, different colors for the dots, or different shades of the same color, or tints of the same color. So a big opportunity is also here. These would be my main options if I were you. Good luck. Now is the turn of Burak Türköz. So Burak, when I looked at your stuff, I don't have anything to say about the first page and about the last page. Thank you for including them. I did check them out, but I think I'm going to focus with the ones you have worked more on. And among these, I think this one is the one that looks the most finished and the less problematic. In here, these are too long. In here, I see a tree, and I also see a different sign, as kind of a Sanskrit sign. Here again, I think these emptinesses, there's details are kind of complicating too much, while here you are connecting them and it starts to look more together. But whether, again, these has to go out that much is a question mark. Maybe this one is shorter, this one is larger, this one is larger, so it creates that kind of a, curve. So I think get them closer and play with thicknesses more. So I like that this is thicker, thinner, but everything could actually become more thick. So maybe you can actually open up the circle. It doesn't have to go fully closed, or it could. So there's an idea here, and I see a bird. I don't know if it was your intention, but it might work. I also really like the way you played with the kind of shadows and the black and light parts in creating the styno. It's really unnecessary to write your name here. I think the styno indicates a really well ground here, a flat kind of a line under which Burak Türköz could fit, and it would create a ground for the dino to actually walk on. So it doesn't mean that it's going to touch, you can have space, but it will indicate that ground, which will be very interesting. And I think the way the dino kind of looks that way, the tail curves, this is a much stronger image than these. So if you like the idea of this dino or dinos or whatever, so it's interesting. I think these are too gothic. These are too calligraphic and these are too gothic, too medieval. I only see a cross here, so unless these are exactly what you want to say, you want to go to that medieval kind of a feel, I think these might be a bit risky. There's an interesting sun-like thing. I don't know if you want to indicate this feeling of the sun or kind of or it might be böyle dikenli bir şey. If I would write my name more to the diagonal here like that, if I were to use this. Again, too traditional kind of stuff. Too hand-drawn, Kılıç Kalkan ekibi falan gibi şeyler hissettiriyor. But this bird is also very interesting. Especially, I like the way you played with this number 11. What I like about it is it's not there yet, but you can, when you work on it digitally, I can imagine this line actually, okay, stopping here, but visually continuing there. This line coming here and perfectly continuing there. So maybe you don't do that much of a curve here, but make sure that this line goes in a really smooth curve up there, and this one goes in a really smooth curve up there. So the bee will read it somehow. It's not that important. We'll read it if we want to, we won't if we can't, but you will have these nice curves coming in. So maybe the the tail could actually go further down even, if you like. The reason why you could play with this tail going further down is because I would ask you to cut up that part. This is too much. You're just doing it to get us to read the T, but it really disturbs the idea of a close, well-made logo. So I want to cut it up. How is it going to be cut up? I mean, very squarely, or is it going to get thinner, or is it going to have like a thinning in like that? But the more the tail gets down, the more space you can leave to this part. But I mean, as an overall thing, it will be finishing in an area like that. And also, this tail also doesn't have to go too far away from the beak. So again, remember that I want to visually, for everything to kind of fit in a well-formed rectangle, let's say, if it can. So instead of taking this all the way down, when you cut it up, you also have a better space to write your name. So which one you will be following with, it's your choice, but don't work on all of them, pick one. The one that conceptually fits with you. The sun, the bird, the dino, or again the bird. Up, it's your choice. Good luck. Now I'm going to talk about burcay. So, okay, let me do it like that. Burcay, I think, by the way, when you put the B and the G like that, there's a brand that's called BG, so it kind of looks too much like it. But now here you have something interesting. I think the first idea of how the B might fit into the G, but of course there's an unnecessary line here. You have to erase it somehow. The G goes like that and turns here. But this is like the first step towards an idea. I wouldn't go with any of these others because this is the strongest idea, but you have to digitally work on it, looking at how thick the G is going to be, or the B is going to be, where exactly am I going to stop the G, how exactly is it going to enter here, is the B, if the B is going to close up, maybe the G will have a different shape to indicate that it's going in here. Is it going to be fully circular, or is it going to come here and then go straight with a corner? So a lot of options could be played with this one, but there is an opportunity there. Here I think these are more problematic because I start to read a D and I don't really see an idea here, and it's just too, there's a nice shape here, but it's all a shape that we already know is a B. You're just putting a lot of empty space, which kind of weakens the idea of an emblem. The lotus flower. So you have an interesting flower, these two especially, you are starting to get a nice image. But don't forget the lotus flower indicates things like, yoga, meditation, Hinduism, so Eastern philosophies. If this is the idea you want to focus on and you want to give, okay, so you have to digitize this and look at how you will probably be writing your name underneath in a symmetrical way. So let's see which typeface you're going to use, how you're going to put it there. And let's see how well you digitize these, because I want to see like perfect perfect shapes, perfect curves. I want to see it like perfectly. Again, okay, this is asymmetrical, but it should fit within a symmetrical overall form. Like this curve should be exactly the same as this curve. The thicknesses, are they going to be thicker and then thinner? How are you going to distribute these thicknesses then? Or if they're going to be the same, exactly how thick should they be? How exactly is this ending point going to be? Is it going to be sharp? Is it going to be brute like that? Where exactly is this thing going to end? Maybe it's too long right now. Maybe you can cut it up here. Maybe it's going to come and be thicker and end, and underneath you're going to write. So right now these are very rough sketches. When you digitize them is where you're going to work on the details, and this is what I want to see. I don't understand any of these and what you're trying to say in terms of your name, and they don't really look like emblems right now. I don't know if you're gonna fill them up. If you're gonna fill them up, I need to have white space here. So I have too many question marks about them. That's why I don't really focus. I kind of focus on what I understand. And here as well, I don't really see a good idea. I mean, an idea concept. So I kind of left off these. I said, if the idea of the lotus fits with your identity, these last two, like I said, can be worked on digitally, or this one. But like I said, these are the very initial beginning first ideas. You have to really work on them visually. The last one among the B's is going to be Berna. Berna, you did not write your name on your file. The next time I see a submission without names, or for this first one, I'm okay. Because I can see the names on the AutoClass submissions, but you have to name the file that you upload with your own name. Otherwise, when I download everything, I don't see who did what. And as you can see here, there are nowhere where you have actually written your name. And so I don't know how the logotype is going to come in next to these emblems. So these are, these too many mirror images are looking a bit weird. I think when you connect them like that, this is very much more interesting, but this actually starts to look like General Electric logo. Check it out. But still, it could work. It's because I really like the way you have mirrored. You have the mirror image here, but it's working really, really nicely. So you can play with it. But what you should be doing and playing. So check out the General Electric logo so that you don't do the same thing. This has the potential of fitting into a circle, but that's when it will really be General Electric. So how would you play with it? Maybe you need to kind of turn it a bit like that so that it fits within a rectangle. Is this really needs to open up like that? Could it end before, or could it turn and come and indicate that? So I think you need to close this up much better. So it should be turning around and it should be a much more closed shape. It would work better, I think. So among all of them, this one is the one that is looking the closer to being solved. So the same idea kind of goes on. Instead of, like in here, I like the one that's open. This could also be, or this could also be, but this opening is a bit, doesn't really look good. You don't have to really close it up. If you're gonna put in some color inside is when you should be closing it, but then you should also be closing this part maybe, otherwise all this part is going to be filled, and so this black line on top of a color is going to look weird. So then maybe you can leave it open, but think about how much, maybe this needs to come here, this needs to go a bit further. Think about how this detail is going to work and how thick these lines are going to be, because right now they're very thin. And here you have gone to another extreme, you have made them thicker. It could work, but of course, I'm not sure if this is digitally made, because the curves are looking really bad. It's not really, rounding properly. I see breaks on your curves. And when you have these nice kind of calligraphic curves, this line in between is very unnecessary. I think you can erase that. So I can only have this, maybe coming like that, maybe ending here, and this one. So I don't really need the full circle to get the idea that they are fitting in a circle. It will function anyway. A much more interesting thing here, but your small dot here is very unnecessary. It's actually necessary, but it's very small. So change the thicknesses. So maybe this one of them needs to be much thinner to give me more space here. This is also, like I said, a very interesting thing. Again, you don't need to close it up. I think it's looking so much more interesting if this would get thinner, and then open up. again, it's thinner and maybe stop here. So play with those ideas, the lines becoming transparent and then indicating the closing, but not really showing it. So this one, maybe this one, but I think if you can open up this kind of space here, this is even better than the upper one, and better than all of these as well. I think the previous ones were much better. This is definitely an 8, and I don't think you want to give us the feeling of 8. Again, a bit boring. These are very, okay, they look a bit sterile. So are with these. So it's good that you have tried. Now, here is something interesting and funny. This could also be, but I kind of see again faces here. I will never be reading B and E here. So, or whatever you want us to see, but this is really funny, fun looking. So think about if these are going to be linear. I think they definitely need to be thicker. Again, you can play with it becoming a bit so thinner and thicker, changing thicknesses as they go. But I think such a caricature looking thing actually works much better when they're the same thickness, but maybe a bit thicker. Or another way to could do it is to actually close them up, and instead of having a line, having a full color here with an empty dot, empty space here. So this one will also need to be closed. So once you don't have the outline but only the solid colors, you can check out how closer they can get, how further away. A very happy and funny looking thing. It's your choice again whether you want to go with that idea. So really good that you're just trying. So fun things to see. This so this is not really working well, but the ertani is working nicely, but the E and the R need to be connected somehow. They're two separate. I see them as two separate things. So the idea of writing B is also very interesting because it kind of philosophically says something to us. B. So you could even put it into a circle, into something to make it look like a kind of a stamp. Whether you want to use that kind of an idea or not, up to you. Here, I think you're kind of indicating the R as well, but bar is a bit weird. And B, E, I understand because it's like the initials. These are too much. So I would focus on not this one because this is read as something else. This one maybe. And like I said, if you want the funny one, maybe this one or this one or maybe this one. So your choice, which one you want to focus on. I don't suggest that you work on all of them. Pick the one that you feel closest to, digitize it, and kind of work on the digital alternatives. Good luck.